Okay, here we go again. Gotta keep everybody accountable. And right now we're in the middle of a situation where you have some pretty obvious anti-black racism coming from some Hispanics in power in the LA City Council. Once again, people are missing the mark quite a bit. As I've already demonstrated in my previous video, Hispanics have been incredibly anti-black. There has been so much racism that has been aimed at black people from that community, but I want to make sure that it's crystal clear though. This isn't something that's restricted to just the people in power. This is also other people, the lay people. Anti-black racism within the Hispanic community is really common. So in this specific case, obviously everyone's kind of talking about it right now. So you have a leaked conversation from several members of the LA City Councils who represent different districts. And in this conversation, one, we hear some blatant racism, and we hear them actually attempting to solidify their power and denigrating black people. I want to make this crystal clear. Nury Martinez did not resign. She did not resign from office. And it seems like right now there are active protesters at her home that are asking for her to resign. And so now the media is making these attempts to almost placate the people by trying to indicate that she resigned.
Nury Martinez has resigned now as president of the LA City Council after making racist remarks in a leaked audio tape.
Right, since this controversy erupted, there have been so many calls for Nury Martinez to resign, not only by elected leaders, but also community members, and that's exactly what has just happened.
I'm Giovanna Latta, live in the ABC 7 newsroom. We have breaking news. LA City Council President Nury Martinez has officially resigned as president of the council.
And that's a problem. You cannot be racist and in a position of power, and she's demonstrated that. But it's not just her. And I think this is where the problem comes in. It's because there is an active attempt to make Nury Martinez the fall guy from what this leak should have actually exposed. But the thing is, she didn't do this thing by herself. And when you punish someone for a crime, you don't just punish the person who did the wrong, you also punish any accessories to that crime. And I think in this situation, there are plenty of accessories, but here's where the kicker is. Those accessories aren't just accessories. They also committed crimes individually themselves as well and contributed. The thing that's really problematic is that we're all focusing on her as the fall guy, and they're also contributing towards this. But I bet you don't even know the other people's names, but that's okay. That's what I'm here for. So one of the people who was also there is Gil Cedillo. He was present for the conversation and also contributed to some of the harm. Gil Cedillo has served as a member of the State Assembly and the Senate, and he's authored over 100 laws across 4 different governors. The laws that he's authored include the California Dream Act, AB 130 and 131. He's also gotten his long-running legislation to grant driver's license to undocumented immigrants, which was AB 60. That was signed into law by Governor Brown. So he has really pushed really heavily for immigrants and things like that. That's been like kind of the cornerstone of what he aims for. Now, I looked and I tried to scour to try to find anything that he's done for black folks. We haven't found any of that. But now I think it's starting to become crystal clear why. He's a member of the Planning and Land Use Management, of the Immigrant Affairs and Civil Rights and Equity Committee. He's on the board of Referred Powers, and so he still occupies positions of power despite what he's done. And I cannot stop at us just like focusing specifically on Nury Martinez when this person is also racist and contribute to those things.
Yeah, that's called K-Town.
Yes.
I see a lot of little short, dark people.
Yeah, puro Oaxacan Koreans. Not even like Kevin, little ones. 25 are black. And the 25 blacks are shouting.
Because to make it crystal clear, if you are in the presence of someone in an active conversation in which they make several racist statements and contribute yourself, but do nothing to denounce that, and then later on in the conversation announce your allegiance or alliance with that person, then that means that you share and you're supporting that person's views as we were expressing that conversation. You're just as culpable. And then what's really crazy about it is, again, they're trying to make her the fall guy and distancing themselves from it so that they can still maintain some of their power. The other person who is also very guilty is Kevin De Leon, who was probably the primary contributor. He submitted a statement to LA Times in which he said he regrets appearing to condone and even contribute to certain insensitive comments made about a colleague and his family in private. I've reached out to that person. But his hands aren't clean. It's not that he just condoned those statements. Kevin De Leon makes a statement referring to this Wizard of Oz effect. where they talk about the fact that black people, like in reality, aren't the numbers in this city, which means now at this point that they shouldn't have to fear us. They shouldn't have to pay attention when we point out some of the egregious things that they are doing, right? So they understand what the numbers game is, and they believe that they're in a position of power, which allows them to be blatant with their racism as they have done. If they do not resign in this situation, it is indicative of the fact that they believe that anti-black racism is tolerable in today's society because of their numbers, and that they are insulated from any form of repercussions. We cannot allow that.
African Americans look at this as a hostile takeover because he's gone. We all have to figure that shit out because politically they're going to come after us.
Yeah, but can I say something right now? And this is what I call the ¿cómo se llama this guy? The movie, the Wizard of Oz effect. And what I mean by the Wizard of Oz effect is when you're at the side of the curtain, it's like this big voice. And it sounds big. And it sounds like there's thousands of them. And then when you actually pull the curtain, is that you see the little Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You know what?
I've never watched the movie.
It's the same thing.
All right.
It's real simple. You got 100 people, right?
it's the
52
old
of them are
school
Mexicanos.
folks.
I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about my chances of beating your ass.
25 are black. And the 25 blacks are shouting. And the
But they
52
shout like they're 250.
Yeah.
When there's 100 of us, they're
Right.
like, it sounds like
So,
there's 10 of us.
but that,
And here's where the crazy thing is. Nury first tried to justify what she said. She said she just got frustrated at the gerrymandering and things like that, while she's actively contributing to statements like that she wants to gerrymander someone else's thing.
So there's certain people who don't merit like us rescuing them. Your comadre, right?
I'm not arguing with you about that.
I know who you know.
¿Quién es su comadre?
You know, Nithya.
Oh, Nithya.
She doesn't merit, right?
But it's
She's not our
everybody-
ally. She's not going to help us. Her district is not a district we can count on.
You're saying that's the one to put in the blender and chop up left or right?
Well, that's what they did.
Yeah.
So you can't sit there and try to complain like, yo, I'm upset about this and this caused me to be frustrated by the gerrymandering parties, and then I diverted that and I started being racist toward black people. How does that happen? Was it the black people that were gerrymandering your district? Absolutely not. In fact, you're in a position of power that was actually aiming to gerrymander others, specifically black people. There was an active goal of theirs for them to get a person of power into District 10, which they eventually got, whose name was Heather Hutt, and they said they wanted somebody that would specifically support her. That was the statement that was made by Labor President Ron Herrera. That was a position that was held by a black person, and they knew that they were going to be replacing that, and they were saying that we have to make sure that we get somebody who's in line with us, because otherwise the blacks are going to come after us. But of course this didn't happen because most of the time we're uninformed about local politics and the things that actually happen. So Heather Hutt, whom they said supported her, eventually occupied that seat.
If somebody slides in, right, temporary or however you do it, right, that person has to support the three of you. Has to support the three of you. And Danny,
You know who wants to run for that seat?
Reggie.
No, Isidore.
I ain't gonna support Reggie. Reggie was over there with Karen.
Who was over there?
After he was fucking sweating his ass off.
The one who will support us is Heather Hutt.
Yes.
I like Heather Hutt.
Yeah.
Heather's.
The thing that's killing me right now is all of the media is making these statements. She resigned, she resigned, she resigned, which of course will make most of the public believe, okay, so since she's not in position anymore, then it's okay, we can kind of rest easy. But no, she didn't resign. She's still in her position of power, and she needs to actually resign from office. She can't just give up her power as the president. She needs to make sure that she's not in office whatsoever, because when people in power have the ability to create legislation or start aiming funds and things like that, when they're in those positions of power and they have racist views, and those things are aimed at black people. That's how you get situations like when a racist president like Reagan starts targeting black people, and then now you have all of these things where they're trying to welfare reform and things like that, and that's how you get people like Clinton, and he starts doing all of these reforms that are largely harmful to black people and taking away things like Pell Grant access to prisoners, even though we know that that would fix recidivism, or welfare reform largely aimed at poor black people, or you have his crime bill, or where you get the war on drugs from Nixon. If a person in power has evil intentions, then they have the most ability to do harm. These people refer to themselves as a Latin caucus.
All this I mean, my goal in life is to get the three of you elected, and I'm just focused on that. I mean, we're like the little Latino caucus of our own
city.
Yeah, and we have to find new folks to bring in. Blumenfield was in here the other day, right? He goes, "Well, we're trying to create another Latino." Yeah, why do we have to do that? I go, the way I see it, all of the seats are Latino.
See that? So if they refer to themselves as a Little Latin Caucus, and that was Ron Herrera who's making that statement with the person who has just made these racist statements, talking about one of these people's kids as a monkey.
The kid is bouncing off the effing walls on the float, practically tipping it over. There's nothing you can do to control him. Parece changuito.
So we can't just sit there and sit on our hands. I hope that the protesters stay at this person's house, but not just hers, but also Kevin De Leon and also Gil Cedillo. All three people need to be held accountable, and Ron Herrera. Everyone will talk about three and not the fourth. He was there. He was complicit. He also said, "I'm trying to solidify power for you guys."
My goal in life is to get the three of you elected, and I'm just focused on that.
Also, to be crystal clear, this conversation happened back in October 2021, right before an election, and of course they got what they wanted in those elections. Now we're having to deal with the aftermath of this conversation, and California is a two-party consent state, which basically means that if you're going to privately record a conversation, both parties have to be aware that the recording is happening and give consent to the thing happening. So whoever recorded this conversation can actually be criminally charged. So I would advise that person to just go ahead and remain silent. They did God's work. I think now it's up to the rest of us to take the information that they gave and to make sure that these people are put out of power. So when you see California's COVID response, they include things that are aimed specifically at Hispanic people. Like, we're going to go ahead and give extra money to all of the people who are undocumented immigrants since they didn't have access to the federal checks. So, or when they make the statement, we're going to go ahead and give extra money to all of the agricultural workers who are largely Hispanic and significant amounts of them are illegal immigrants. So when you decide that you're going to do those kinds of things, meanwhile, we know that black people are hyper overrepresented within gig work, and gig work was one of the things that was most harshly affected by COVID-19 because people weren't leaving their houses. So now black people got nothing, and the reason why black people got nothing is because the Hispanics in power fight for their own, and they actually enjoy the anti-blackness that this state actually does. So my main point, the whole purpose of this video is just to make sure that we are crystal clear that Nury Martinez has not resigned, despite what the media is trying to say. She's resigned from the president, but she has not resigned from office. She has not resigned from office, and until she resigns from office, we should not let up at all. Do not feel at ease. She still is in a position of power. She can still harm people. It's absolutely disgusting that it just full stop. Anyway, listen, I think when I've talked about the anti-black racism within the Hispanic community aimed at black people, in my very first video, what I did was talk about the history, right? LULAC and all of the other ones. I still am willing to do another follow-up video. Another perfect example of their anti-black racism, but them choosing to ally whenever they feel like it's beneficial, but not true allyship, it would be the LULAC after George Floyd died, and when there was worldwide protest, a literal protest in every single state and in several other countries. Then at that point, then they decided to say Black Lives Matter. But it's okay. They're doing it because of the fact that they recognize now that there is a global movement to recognize that Black Lives Matter and to recognize that Black lives are in danger. I mean, they only did this once it was popular. Mind you, Black Lives Matter had been trending for over 5 years before then. I searched. There was not a single statement from LULAC regarding Black lives and Black Lives Mattering prior to that. They were only willing to do it once they recognized that they wanted to stand up with the rest of the world, as the rest of the world became alarmed at the obvious and egregious nature of a cop kneeling on the neck of George Floyd for 9 minutes and feeling like he was going to be able to do so with impunity. That enraged everyone, and so then finally they said, okay, fine, we'll say something too. This also mirrors the way that they allied with the civil rights movement only after the Civil Rights Act was passed, and then suddenly there was going to be affirmative action and things, and they realized there would be protected class status. Then they say, hey, you know, we support black people too. Despite writing letters denouncing the civil rights, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, they still, when it's powerful, when it's meaningful, when they feel like, hey, we have a gain personally from this, then they will go ahead and say something. There is no black and brown coalition. People of color is a phrase that is used to absolutely harm black people by causing us to not pay attention to how direct the harm and aim has been from this government against black Americans and freedmen. This is kind of a quick video. Maybe I can try to revisit it and like collect my thoughts a little bit better in the future so that we can really paint the picture of what exactly is happening. If you like this video, please share it. Please subscribe, you know, hit the like button and do all that stuff. And I appreciate comments because they help me recognize that I'm doing the right things. Tell me what your thoughts are on the situation. Again, let's not just ask for Nury Martinez to resign. Let's also ask for Gil Cedillo, Kevin De Leon, and Ron Herrera. All of them are culpable.